Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our seminar that we've titled Optimizing Working Capital using Digital Process Automation. Today, I'm here, one second. My name is Kelechi Hanyebu, and I'm the founder and principal consultant at Data Engineering, specializing in the area of digital operation with the focus of helping business owners and managers to unlock their innovation potential and improve their decision-making agility. Here with a colleague, a partner as well, Mark Amin. So Mark will be introducing himself shortly. So Mark, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Mark. I've been working with Kelechi for the past few months now, and my focus is on helping him and his clients understand how people think, how his clients, customers think, and with the intention of being able to develop a solution for them that fits or that does the job that's needed to be done.
Okay. All right. So basically, in November last year, I presented a thought leadership content in an online digital transformation conference organized by Bright Talk for the APAC region. The conference was titled Comprehensive Cloud Strategies for 2021. This was an opportunity for me to introduce the concept of digital operation as a new bridge for a post-pandemic business environment where operational flexibility and agility is required to survive constant change in the business environment. At the time, I titled the webinar Building the Technology Bridge for Post-Pandemic Business. And ever since then, it's sort of been featured in a number of press releases, including International Business Times, and now fortunate to partner with global technology companies who strengthen our ability to deliver our digital vision at Data Engineering. So as an entrepreneur and someone who's also passionate about innovation, I obviously, my career started as an engineer in mechatronics, focusing on helping customers in different industries, including mining, oil and gas, to try and build solutions. Ever since then, I mean, when we came out, we were looked at or considered as pioneers in that area, and we were working with what was considered at the time cutting-edge technologies. So ever since then, obviously, technology has evolved, and today's technology is very much different. And as a true innovator, I believe that your innovation capacity never stops. You have to move with the trend, and you have to continuously seek knowledge in areas that you're not only passionate about, but also areas that would allow you to gain the knowledge required to adapt to change. Yeah. So this is why I'm here today, because that curiosity, my ability to collaborate has allowed me to build a foundation of data engineering that is aimed at revamping the automation process and enhancing business agility and flexibility. Today's agenda, we're going to be, I'll start off by focusing on obviously why, so I'm going to start off by talking about why we focus on growth-oriented businesses and what are some of the roadblocks that present the greatest challenge for them. And after that, I'll get Mark to talk about the changes in the market that are forcing businesses to become more responsive and proactive to meet, as well as to anticipate changing consumer needs and wants, and how they can affect their working capital. Next, is digital operations and why it is considered a new bridge for growth-oriented businesses. And then we'll take a coffee break. And then when we come back, I'll be talking about a new approach to optimizing working capital and why it is considered critical for growth-oriented businesses, especially during the period of uncertainty. So finally, we'll go into the, explaining making you understand what digital process automation is and how it can be quickly deployed to improve working capital and fast-track business growth. We'll obviously do some custom demonstration and some case studies as well to help with understanding. And then we'll finalize by answering the Q&As that people might have, and then we'll close the event. All right. So, what are some of the roadblocks that present the greatest challenges for business owners? Well, to start with that, I would like to sort of, get people to imagine their business or imagine your business as a vehicle that is traveling from the startup stage to maturity stage. Yeah. As a business owner, obviously you're driving your business forward, and you have total control of your business. In this case, the car. So you know where you're going with your business, your destination, the condition of the vehicle, and how much fuel you need in the car to get to your destination. Yeah. So when you navigate or go through that journey, you're obviously going to encounter some obstacles and roadblocks. Yeah. And you need to be in a position to be able to navigate around it. Yeah. So this analogy, I'm basically trying to present an analogy around business where you accelerate or ease your sales and marketing function. These functions help you generate customers and drive revenue. Without this, your business will not move forward. The brake is compared to your finance and accounting function. There's no need or there's no use you pushing forward your business and all of a sudden coming to a complete stop because you run out of fuel. That brake controls the speed at which you drive your business forward and make sure that you do not only, or you're not too fast, yeah, and end up losing control of your business, yeah. So to keep control of this vehicle and your business as a driver, you need to have a solid, dashboard that obviously shows you how your business is performing, your car is performing. And then that dashboard represents the reports you receive about the performance of your business. So the dashboard will save your business by preventing any accidents from happening and making sure that you're generating enough revenue and that the costs are being controlled. So for growth businesses, yeah, there are some certain challenges or roadblocks that growth businesses encounter, yeah? And business growth doesn't just happen by chance. It comes from good strategy and a wise technology investment. And then when you focus on your customers and you know what they want and when their needs are changing, then you're more empowered to actually continue to evolve your business around your customer. So in some cases, there's some locks get thrown in. You can imagine what's going on right now. Some businesses who never anticipated becoming unicorns all of a sudden. COVID hit, and they're now unicorns because it was timing and the luck was there for them. So yeah, so that's basically that. And then when you look at that analogy I talked about, where there is obviously your cash flow, the cash that comes into your business, and the cash that goes outside your business. So making sure that there's that consistency around cash inflow, and then there's you manage how much cash is going on your business is very important for that growth, and that's the fuel. And then when it comes to the inventories, are basically those things that you sell to your customers that generate your cash. So as you're moving forward, obviously you're going to meet some roadblocks, and in this case, today there's roadblocks around supply chain disruption, where companies that have relied on bringing stuff from overseas, their supply chain have been disrupted significantly, and these companies now have to think of new ways of providing products or services to their customers, especially with all the geopolitical stuff as well happening in places like China and and Australia, and a few other things that sort of driving this as well. And when the whole COVID thing first started, the first thing that came on the news is news about ships and all that stuff being stopped and not being able to come into several to Australia, for example. And that people never thought about what that meant for their business, so they were just watching the news. But what that meant was that that was going to definitely affect how much goods that's going to be in the country, and how that was going to affect their business. So now that time has gone past, they're feeling the effects right now. So those people haven't actually planned for a future where there's not enough goods in the country that they can actually purchase and sell to their customers. So that's an example of supply chain disruption. And then the next thing is around changes in customer needs. So that's primarily being driven by technology again, obviously the social media platforms and all these applications that are out there, which means that customers within the tip of their hand can change what they want just by talking to someone next to them, and then they change from being a loyal customer to you, and they're now purchasing from a different competition, for example. So this is constant change that businesses that are now experiencing, and some businesses sometimes, depending on what industry you are in, if you're in a B2C industry, business to consumer industry, that change is much more rapid. For business to business, the change is there, but it's not probably because obviously it's contract secures some of these changes. But in a nutshell, these contracts can be broken as well. When things change. A good example is, at a large scale is what's happening, between, the news, Australia, France, all that kind of stuff. That's basically a major contract being broken, but that's been done because there's been a change in the environment that needed attention. So these things are possible, they can happen. And that brings me back down to changes in the government regulations. So this is constantly changing. Because as government's regulations are changing, they're changing to obviously to adapt to the changes in environment brought about by rapid change in technology, and government regulations are changing to make sure that that they're on top of everything. So that as a business, you need to be able to be aware of what that means for your business, and then in the finance space especially, that change is very significant for some businesses where they're actually not thinking about continuing their business because they physically or don't have the resources to be able to meet the requirements that they've been that has been thrown at them. All right, so that's basically it. So just focusing on that. And then for businesses who are lucky enough to get past this growth stage, obviously there's the go through an expansion phase where they, and then through to maturity. Where they still face some challenges, but obviously much more different from what we experienced today. So here are some of those roadblocks, if you want to summarize them. So it's more around, customer acquisition or retention. So how good are you in acquiring customers and keeping your customers? Yeah. The next one is around working capital management. So basically, how good are you in managing, the fund that you need to run your business, which is now the fuel I talked about earlier. So how good are you in making sure that your assets or your current assets and your current liabilities are in a position where you maintain a positive working capital? Yeah, which is what we're going to dive deep into in today's talk. Yeah, and then the other one is around your business network and engagement. Yeah, so your business networks extends to your supply chain, those that you obviously you get goods and services from, support your business. Those network extends to your employees as well, and it also looks at your customers and how they are part of that network. So having that transparency and visibility across that network makes it, ensures that engagement is much stronger. And I think that's where these are the three key roadblocks that a lot of businesses in that growth phase face, and they need to address. Yeah. Now, just going down to this next slide, this is a very common, what's it called, matrix to try and explain what people always refer to as product market fit. Yeah. So this is an soft growth matrix. So it's a good basis for considering the strategic growth of your company. So looking at that, you will see that obviously there is that division between, there's a market and there's a product, and then you're looking at existing against new. So there's a market penetration strategy which some businesses choose to pursue depending on the customers and what the stuff is. And there's the product development strategy. The other one is the market I think penetration. I've mentioned that. And then the diversification strategy. So these are the four main strategies that businesses pursue when they talk about growth. So now, what does that look like in terms of risk? So there are when you look at the strategy around, let's say, diversification, that's high risk in the sense that there is definitely, if you're going into a new market and then you're also having to bring in a new product. So that's a very high risk area to operate in. And a lot of businesses fail if they take this strategy and they're not, obviously don't have something unique enough to last that long. Yeah. So those ones who succeed in it, when you look at companies like, Netflix, Uber, and all those ones, they've taken that approach and they've actually succeeded in it and then been such successful businesses if you actually succeed. But without going into detail with that, because that's not why we're here. So I just wanted to highlight some key insights around this. So basically, when we look at businesses pursuing this growth strategy and market penetration strategy. These business owners are often looking for solutions that will allow them to adjust their price to attract new customers or increase the promotion and distribution efforts. So they're more focused on market reach and sometimes obviously competing based on price. So with solutions like automated price monitoring of their competition and then being able to adjust their price in real time is one example of some of the solutions that these companies might find, these business owners might find attractive to allow them to pursue this strategy. And then we're looking at the other one around market development. So market development, business owners speak to in this pursuing the kind of strategy, they're looking at solutions that will allow them to cater for different customers in different segments. Or maybe they're looking at going into different markets geographically, like or a foreign market. So they already have an existing, they have what is it called? They have an existing product, yeah, and they're looking at going to an existing market, but they're looking at extending into like obviously a new geography, for example. So a good example is quite popular now is in the e-commerce space, where businesses have been operating for 10, 15 years have now found an opportunity to actually grow, in the sense that they're looking at how they provide or supply their goods, services to people overseas or people in a different state. It's the same thing that they've been selling over 15 years, but now they've opened up the new market because this technology allows them to do things like drop shipping, where an order comes to you, but rather than you fulfilling it, your suppliers or trading partners in another country actually fulfills that order on your behalf. So, and that's obviously been enabled by the ability to integrate the different systems between businesses and get them talking to each other to be able to achieve that. And then we're looking at this other one here, where product development strategy is a very common one for startups here, because when you're starting up as a startup, you want to have some uniqueness to what you're offering, and they tend to package this as a product. There's heavy investment in R&D for these people. So these people decide to build, let's say like a software as a service platform that they want to license to their customers. And a lot of the time they're in an existing, what's it called? It's an existing market, but they're developing a new product, an existing market. And these type of customers, obviously, there's a heavy risk in what they do as well, in the sense that it's R&D focused. And you hope that during that time that you're developing, that you don't have competition coming in to do what you're planning to do. So the speed of development becomes quite important here. And this is where we come in to help some of these kind of customers. And then the final one is diversification. This is the much very risky side of this stuff, where businesses pursuing this strategy, they're looking for solutions that will allow them to create, a new line of activity or a new business model or so, where, either they do that through acquisition of another business, or they're looking at, internal changes to their business offering or business model so that they can actually achieve this. And then they also look at things around, they face challenges around consolidation, especially when they acquire a business and then they want to get that business information, consolidate that information, and that becomes a big challenge for them. So these are some of the key 4 strategies that grow businesses pursue, and this is exactly how we can come in and help them. So in a nutshell, just trying to bring everything together, our mission is really to empower business owners and managers to embrace this constant change in the business environment as an opportunity for growth and innovation by collaborating with them to deliver what we're calling a digital operation, which I'll explain a bit more down the slide, without the hassle. And I guess just to drive into our next discussion, which Mark will come in and throw some light on. When one thing I've gathered from talking to different people is that when you say digital transformation, people tend to get that quite wrong. A lot of people don't understand what that means. So, and then when in some cases, people say, they hear digital transformation, they think marketing. They talk about all the stuff they gotta do in marketing, digital marketing. And that's where digital transformation ends for them. Whenever we talk to them, they say, oh, we're digitizing, we're automating and all that stuff. So, and they think we're doing a lot of stuff that is digital transformation. But in a nutshell, digital transformation is actually not that. So digital transformation is really focused on the customer. So it's how well do you understand your customer? And if you do, how well have you packaged your solution in a way that your customers are looking at you and thinking, wow, you really understand what we want, even what we haven't even thought about that we need, but you've thought about it for us. So that's the level that a lot of companies are now who are successful in digital transformation have taken things to. And without taking much of Mark's time, I'll let Mark to come around and sort of talk about his slide around the customers.
Thanks, Kadishi. I'll just do a little bit of introduction about myself again. I've been a market researcher for about 20 years. I took a break in 2012, put my fingers into a couple of other different businesses. One was a restaurant, which I still have, which has just been franchised, and the other is running a shared office space, which I no longer do. And both decisions that I made, the decisions that I made to continue on one and discontinue the other were basically driven by insights. Now, so I've been on both ends, therefore, of market research as a service provider as well as a user. And I'd like to share with you in this presentation some of those experiences, and hopefully it will help you to mitigate one of the issues that a growing brand or a growing business tend to face, the dilemma of looking after the present, at the same time looking ahead. And by looking ahead, I guess we're all talking about innovation. Given the level of technology and the talent that is available today, it's almost impossible not to do any form of innovation. Whether it is a product, whether it is a service, or anything to do with your marketing, or it can even be your processes of how you go about doing things. Innovation will be the lifeline of every business from now on. Okay, and I think the pandemic has demonstrated the need for businesses to continue to be on this innovation platform, both in good times as well as in bad times. Right. So let me just get started then with looking at what I'll be covering for the next 15 minutes. I'll talk about, first and foremost, the 4 universal truths about today's consumers. Okay. Whether it's a B2B or B2C, I think some, if not all of these truths are relevant and may apply to your business as well. I'll touch on the bumpy road ahead, and I think it's something that we are all aware and familiar with. And I'll give you an example of how big and small data come together in the innovation space. I think when we talk about data these days, we tend to talk about the big data. We tend to look at things such as your click-throughs and your impressions and all those things about digital marketing, right? But there's still a space for small data, which is basically what I provide, market research. And I share with you this case study on how the two came together that led to the birth of a new product, a new service, a new company, in fact, altogether, if I'm not wrong. Okay. Then I'll touch about what is game-changing innovation. I'll end by giving you a very simple matrix that you can use to decide on what you want to put out next in the marketplace for your consumers. Okay. Now, I think we are probably familiar with almost all of them, but it's one that I would like to highlight, which is today's consumers expect businesses, expect brands to know them very well. And I think given the amount of digital footprint that they leave behind, again, it's inexcusable, I guess, to some extent for us not to know them well. But the reality is that not every business, not every brand fully understands, fully know their customers well. Okay. Now, if you do know them very well, then I think you will agree with what I'm going to show you next, which is what most consumers, what most people are looking for today in a brand, in business, is a new experience that will uplift the quality of life. We have gone beyond just looking at our basic needs in search for something more. If you look at, for example, the growth of personal mobility devices, I mean, they're literally everywhere now, so much so that in some countries, rules and regulations are being put together that governs the use of personal mobility devices as much as
we drive cars and all the other vehicles that we have on the road. Okay, so if you know your customers or your consumers well, then I think you will agree that they are in search of new experiences. Okay, there's a McKinsey report that was put together just a few months back that covered some areas of a person's life that they are looking for something new, something that will uplift their quality. And I think the pandemic, to a large extent, has contributed to the larger appetite that people have for new experiences. Okay, let me give you a very simple example. Today, well, not today, thanks to the pandemic, working from home is a fact of life for many people all around the world. But the idea of working from home is not new. It's been around for the longest time ever. It was called remote working. And I think it was one of the reasons that was given to support this idea was the need to have a work-life balance. But it didn't really work in the sense that not many people actually bought into it. People still preferred to get to the office. People preferred the routine, having a cuppa before you walk into the office, having lunch with your colleagues and meeting people and so on. Until the pandemic came along and work from home became a fact of life, right? So much so that there are people who would rather not go back to the office, and even though they are allowed to, but it's not because of this whole idea of work-life balance. I think more and more people have realized that work-life balance is kind of a bit of a romantic notion, but when you have to struggle a Zoom meeting and having to mind the kids or do something else at home, it can be a real challenging. And also people realize that working from home, you actually end up working a lot more. Okay. Now, the three questions that I like businesses and brands to reflect on in regards to knowing your customers. First question to reflect on is, how well do you know your customers? Apart from the obvious, such as how much they buy, how frequent they buy, and what they buy. What more do you know about your customers? Which leads me to the second question for you to reflect on. Do you know what are the 10 critical things you must know about your customer? I'll share with you one of them, which is, what is the emotional connection the customer has with your brand, with your business, that sometimes defies logic? You may not be the most perfect solution, but they continue to be loyal users, loyal customers of your brand. Okay, I'll share with you, and I'm more than willing to share these 10 critical things. Third question, do you have a know your customer strategy or plan in place? Now, many businesses actually do. In fact, in a survey that was done again by McKinsey, only 23% of the world's top executives of businesses actually have a know your customer strategy or plan in place. Okay. Now, given that the road ahead is going to be bumpy, and we all know that it has always been bumpy to begin with, but the pandemic has kind of like made it even more bumpy. How much more important is knowing your customers in order for you to survive, to stay resilient, and obviously to be able to be in a good financial position to continue to innovate so that you can outwit, and stay ahead of the competition? I'll share with you this quote. Let me read it out to you. There can be rapid and quantum changes in consumer behavior. The key word there is quantum. In other words, huge changes that invalidates long-held assumptions, diminishes the value of historical data and norms, and forces brands to recalibrate almost every element of their operations overnight. And I think all of us can fully empathize with that. Again, thanks to the pandemic. How frequent and how often have we had to make changes because of things that happen out there in the marketplace, in the larger environment? All the borders could be open today, it could be shut tomorrow. It could be shut tomorrow and open the next day. Agility has taken on a new meaning altogether in this pandemic. Agility is no longer about just flexibility, but how fast can you respond to emerging situations. And not only emerging situations, but situations that can have a quantum impact on how things are done, which includes obviously consumer behavior. Okay, so without data in place, without a strategy of knowing your customers and putting the two things together, it can be very difficult and very challenging for businesses to see through the bumpy road ahead. Yeah. And I share with you this quote. The companies that are going to win are the ones who are using data, not guessing. With the amount of data and the quality of data that's available out there, again, it's inexcusable to just rely on entrepreneurial acumen, to rely on customer instincts, to rely on gut feel to make decisions. While they remain valid, they have to be supported with data, with how well you know your customers. And it's only then will you be able to make smarter decisions, not just informed decisions, but smarter decisions. And we define smarter decisions as those that allow us to learn faster, timely, responsive, not reactive. And what I think you will hear a lot more in the coming years is greater precision in your marketing, in your operations, and even in managing of your finances. Now, I mentioned earlier on about a case study where big and small data came together and rocked an industry. Some of you may be familiar with QuickBooks or Intuit. Intuit is basically the company behind Quicken. It is a leading personal finance management tool. As far back as in the late 90s, and that's how far back some companies have been using data actually. The analysts at Quicken realized that their customers were using it at the workplace. And then they use interviews, in other words, small data, market research to understand why they were being used in the office. And then they realized that some of their customers were extending the use to the business accounting system. And that presented them with an opportunity, which led to development, to the launch of QuickBooks. It's a very simple, straightforward example of how big and small data came together, led to the development of an innovation. Now, we have been developing, testing lots of ideas over the years across Asia Pacific, across hundreds of consumers. And that led us to developing this very simple matrix. On the vertical axis, which unfortunately you can't see, is what we call the consumer impact. The higher up you go, the greater will be the consumer impact. On the horizontal axis is what we call the business value. In other words, the value that the particular innovation adds to the business, right? Both in monetary sense, in terms of its ability to acquire and retain customers, and obviously to be able to remain financially resilient so that money can continue to be reinvested into developing new ideas, new products. Now we have put Netflix, some of you may be familiar with Southwestern Airlines in the US, right at the top quadrant there, where in terms of consumer impact, they obviously have made a big impact. You would probably have read the case studies about the difference between Netflix and Blockbuster. Netflix had actually offered to buy over Blockbuster at some point in time, but the then owners of Blockbuster said that he cannot or they can't imagine anyone to watch movies being streamed online. But as you know, Netflix is around today and Blockbuster videos have shut down. Southwestern Airlines is well known for its ability to be preemptive, to be responsive to what their customers' needs are, to what their consumers' wants are. And as a result of that, they were one of the few airlines in the US that have managed to ride through the turbulence of the global financial crisis in 2008, 2009, and even the current pandemic. Now, I put WeWork. If you're not familiar with WeWork, it's a co-working space facility one that is present globally around the world, and one that was was in the news for the wrong things a couple of years ago with regards to its founders. If you have been to a WeWork facility, it's very easy to fall in love with it. It's swanky, it's hip, it's trendy, it's got everything that anyone would like to have in an office space that is seen to be inspiring and creative, right? But from a business value point of view, and because I have been in the co-working shared office space business as well, it's a tough gig. You're not likely to be able to see the light of day for quite some time, right? So that's an example of an idea of an innovation that's high in consumer impact, but probably low in terms of the value it brings to a business. On the bottom half, you will see, I'll skip the European Soccer League because that has been basically put aside. But if you look at electric vehicle, for example, it's high in terms of business value. But I think in a lot of countries, people are still struggling with the idea of owning one. People are still putting out questions such as the viability of it and the cost effectiveness of it and so on. So the impact hasn't really been that great in many countries, even here in Australia, which has got one of the lowest penetration of electric vehicles, right? But from a business value point of view, if you look at Tesla as an example, it is high. So ideally, in terms of innovation that will be able to add on to, that will be able to give you that financial resilience, that will be able to give you that financial capacity to continue to innovate and invest in a business and invest in your customers, they're probably looking at the examples of Netflix as well as Southwestern Airlines. Okay. Now, staying consumer-centric makes innovation more challenging, but rewarding in the digital age. And the reason for that is because consumers today, your customers today, would like to have a say, would like to participate, would like to share their thoughts and ideas with regards to the next big thing that you're going to be creating for them. Because if you're able to do that, if you're able to account for their needs, for their wants, for their desires, then you will be able to develop a sense of ownership in that particular innovation, be it a product, a service, or even just a packaging design, because today's consumers would like to see their footprint in whatever that creation is, okay? And I think that's the challenge that many businesses basically have got to come to the table to, because today's consumers want to be heard and they want to be listened as well. So on that note, how do you get started? Well, I think it first and foremost begins by looking at your financial standing at this point in time. And there are enough instruments, there are enough platforms out there for you to begin to do that. Next is for you to institute a know your customer mindset in the business. I know this may sound strange, but not every organization, not every business has this mindset. The next is for you to take small steps to understand, perhaps starting off with your best customers, truly clarifying and defining the problem that you are solving for them, that they need to be resolved. Get up close by using or by implementing small projects to get to know your best customers first. Subsequent to that, if you have not, or if you do not have one in place yet, is to develop a CRM system that allows you to know your customers even better, getting up closer and more personal, to the point that you're able to become their advocates. In other words, preempting, anticipating what they need and what they want. And if you're able to turn those insights into an innovation, then chances are you will stay ahead of the competition. And obviously, that can only strengthen your financial position. And then the cycle repeats again. With that, you continue to innovate and innovate and innovate. And you get closer, and you get to know your customers a lot more, a lot better. And I think that's the way moving ahead, given the bumpy road ahead, companies and businesses will be able to stay financially resilient, financially strong to continue to stay ahead of the competition. I hand you back over to Kalichi.
All right, guys. Thanks, Mark, for that. What is it called? That was great. Obviously, trying to get people to understand the importance of KYC, which is know your customer, and that was great. So this will just take me to the next slide here. Just quickly get to the next slide. All right, so I think one more person just joined the meeting. So Maria, welcome, if you can hear us. So we're just going through, obviously, that concept of digital operation, which I touched on at the beginning of the presentation, where I say that it's an important thing for growth businesses, because with growth, the speed of implementation or the speed of growth becomes very relevant. So digital operations is really what I talked about when I did a Bright Talk webinar where I introduced the concept. And that concept was seen as a new bridge to post-pandemic business environment. So the bridge, the way I looked at the bridge is really, you need to have a solid foundation in your business. So that foundation can involve, having the right, ERP solution or a software that you use to run your business, something that is solid enough, and to hold your business down, yeah. And then also something that can actually help you connect to your suppliers and your entire supply chain in a way that is more secure, because today, the challenges are becoming much more difficult for a number of businesses. The number of cyber attacks that you hear happening here in where we are in Perth, Western Australia, is also on the rise as well. So being able to make sure that you have that into consideration when you're designing the foundation of a business is also important. The next one is the discover. The discover stage, I look at that as a substructure of a business that helps you quickly find improvement opportunities with ease. Yeah. So this is where things like process mining, analytics, and dashboard solution. Those ones who, when you bring that into your business, that would help you react quickly to opportunities or see opportunities much clearer. And then that will also allow you to react quickly to them. For a growth business, this is very important because of the reasons that I highlighted earlier in my previous slide. So now the final one is automation. Automation, I look at automation as a superstructure that obviously is focused on improving the quality and speed at which you deliver service to your customer. So this could be things like, automation of, mundane and repetitive tasks that a lot of the guys in the back office or white collar workers, they call them, would do. So this is more focused on improving productivity, which also looks at, ensuring that employees and people within the business are complying to the business rules. And then also in some cases help you, with compliance to regulations, external regulations. That's basically where we view that start for digital operation. And then just going to the next slide, just to bring some clarity in terms of what that looks like. For us, we're looking at what I just talked about, those three areas. So with Streamline, we're currently working with a number of companies. But currently, we're looking at Odoo as a solid foundation, given the fact that it is fully customizable as an ERP solution, which means you build a solid foundation around your business requirements, and as well as looking into your suppliers and vendors and how you actually integrate with their systems as well to ensure that information flows freely. So that's a solid foundation that we start off with. And then we can look at things around discovery. So this is where, rapid process mapping and mining is a key thing. So where, quickly in a workshop or a session, we quickly understand the business process and then map them all out. And then we look at the things around, dashboards and all that. That's quite common now, but a lot of the time it's not the dashboard itself, it's really the analytics that comes underneath that when you discover those insights. What does that mean for your business? How do you act on it? So that's really discovery phase. And then there's automation as well. So the automation will go a bit more in detail in this discussion or this seminar. So just a bit of a pictorial of what those look like as a stack that we use it to deliver operational advantage for businesses. So now going to my next slide, this is obviously ties to what I'm talking before in terms of our method of engagement. So at that engineer, we formed a delivery alliance with a number of companies. So we focus on, bringing the technology, these great technologies that are out there, and then bringing it to the business. How they can be put together to solve their challenges, yeah? Because from the client or end user, very much focused on the problems they're facing. They're really not focused on the technology and other stuff. So that's what keeps them up at night. Not technology is the problem. So it's really trying to get into their head and understand what that problem looks like. And then from that, obviously, we will collaborate with system integrators, technology partners, consultants, to really focus on the best way to address that challenge. And this is where the engineering, the kind of foundation that we have here. And then what does that look like in terms of solutions? So basically, that collaboration gives birth to a number of solutions for us. So when it comes to custom software development, it's a unique thing for, especially when I talked about in the previous slide, when I talked about the different strategies for growth businesses pursue. When you look at the product development strategy, so these startup companies, they want to come up with a unique product. They want to build something that they're going to take to the market. There's going to be, they can help them position their brand very quickly and reach a lot of customers very fast. So that's really what they're looking at. And then also the flow of information between systems, because when they come in and build something that is unique, it really gives them an advantage in the market. So that custom development is very critical to what we do for those businesses who are at that startup stage and who are looking at pursuing like a product development strategy. So that's what we focus on. And then in the next one, we're looking at advanced data analytics, solution, which I mentioned that is really around quickly help people react to opportunities and threats. And then the focus area for us is really around behavioral analytics. So behavioral analytics is really, there's so many different use cases that can come from that. It's really around, when it comes to understanding your customer, like what Mark was explaining before around KYC, there are solutions that we can use to understand the behaviors of the customers, and then also bring external factors into it. For example, if you're looking at a customer who wants to understand the purchase behavior of their customers and what time do they purchase my product the most, what's the weather look like during that time, you can start combining data to actually give them better insight or make a business more proactive and plan your inventory much better for your customers. So, and then you can look at things around predictive analytics, which is quite common in the mining space. They're using more around predicting the behavior of machines when they're going to fail, and then being proactive around the maintenance of them. And then also there's predictive things around, predicting customer behavior, what they're going to do. And then, in different industries, it's being used in healthcare, predictive analytics is used around, disease, being able to, basically look at a patient and say, okay, within the next few years, this patient is going to be struggling with this. So this is the level of analytics that, that can be, brought into your business with speed as well. And then the other one is more anomalies detection. So this is basically looking at the data that you have that is flowing in and out of the business, and then looking at a pattern around that data, and then being able to detect when there is, anomalies in that data. So examples could look like, this machine failure I talked about before, where rather than predicting the machine is going to fail, you're actually just looking at the behavior of the machine and saying, okay, this machine is behaving not normal like it used to be, or has been behaving in the last 3 or 5 years. So it's changed. So that anomaly detection is a critical part for a lot of businesses. So that's where we focus. And then other area which is becoming quite popular here now is the area of digital process automation. So this is the superstructure I talked about around, how do we quickly, improve accuracy how do we quickly ensure compliance around business rules, around regulation, and all that kind of stuff for businesses who are growing. And a lot of time the focus is not on this stuff, it's not on this, because the focus is very much shift to operational. So they're more busy trying to satisfy their customer they already have, rather than actually looking at how they're complying to regulation, how they're complying, how the employees complying to the business rules. Is it gonna, people actually complying to the business process and all that stuff. So with digital process automation, I'm gonna go into this in terms of what that means in a few more slides down the track. But really, it's more focused on compliance, like I mentioned, ensuring compliance, reducing the costs around productivity of employees, and then in some cases, in this particular event, we're talking about optimizing working capital. It's a great solution to use in this space because every business exists to make money. So if this actually can come into your business and help you make more money and remain, have a positive working capital, then of course you want to look into it. So yeah, so now the whole digital process automation is basically how you combine, reporting, analytics, AI, RPA, for those who know what that means, which is basically automation of things that people normally do on the computer. A lot of time we use the word the swivel chair operation. So basically, you are trying to move data from one system to the other, because that's the way businesses have been built in the past and currently. So you're moving data from one software to another, or you're using an Excel spreadsheet to do your work, or you're reading documents and all that kind of stuff. So basically, this brings everything together where, once we understand the business process, the documents, and the people use to execute those business process and the systems, then obviously you can figure out how automation comes in to help for that streamline that process. So this is more just trying to give a bit of an idea in terms of that process of delivering excellence, where we very much focus on the what's it called? The working very closely with our customers. And I think that's why we start off with an empathetic ideation. And that empathetic ideation, we're looking at how that fits into the business improvement cycle for a lot of businesses, and also business growth cycle. This is what we're talking about. But really, that business improvement cycle starts with a discover stage, where a lot of businesses start off by saying, what are the opportunities that exist for us to grow as a business, or what are the opportunities that exist for us to make more money and all that kind of stuff. So they look at it to that discovery phase. So this is where the empathetic ideation really comes in, because you're really now looking at some of the challenges and initiatives, goals that the businesses are looking to achieve. And then also by bringing in fresh ideas, which is why, collaborating with someone like Mark, who's got that solid background in market research, user experience research, where, rather than just focusing on what the business, what you think the business problem is, or the problem that they present to you that they have, you actually taking a holistic approach to understanding the market that the business is in, and what are some of the drivers that are within that market that is driving them to act. And then when you come from the outside in, you tend to, bring a different perspective, a fresh perspective, of new ideas, even to the business owners and managers in terms of what they're trying to do. And that potentially can shift their strategy to something, it can shift their strategy or the client strategy to something different. So now that empathetic ideation also involves around quickly coming in to identify, understand the business process, where, the process mapping, the speed of process mapping, and then doing analytics and trying to understand behavioral insights and all that stuff. And then it's really around ensuring that at the end of that session, we have clarity around what the problem is and the what's it called, the job to be done in terms of the solution, like Mark mentioned before. And then moving down the rapid prototyping, which is a key part of what we're offering around helping with validating business case. So it's how quickly can we come up and show value and show return on investment. And then once that is done, then as a business owner or manager, you're more confident to engage in terms of, okay, what does the delivery plan look like? How does that fit into my business? And that's something that's becomes part of the accelerated plan and delivery part of the business. So this is basically more like a process around this and how we deliver excellence with solutions. And then just to end this, and I'm going to try to end with this slide because this is a slide sort of put together to try and make it easy for business owners to actually get a head around this whole space here, because it's quite messy, and then trying to navigate this space is quite messy. So also being able to navigate this space and bring it to a point where we're looking at 3 core values here that we're trying to provide a business through our engagement. So it's more around increasing productivity, helping them unlock the innovation potential, because a lot of business owners have thoughts in their mind in terms of how they tend to improve their business, the problems they're facing, they know that quite well, and they're always looking for solutions. But if we come in and help them really unlock that innovation that they already have, their potential, then that's another key value that we drive. And then the other one is around improving agility, so the speed at which you deliver your services to your customer. When through that engagement, if you feel like that speed of delivering service your customer has been improved, then that's great. So really, these are the key values. And then around that, we're looking at areas around, okay, we're focusing on operation advantage, when solutions, when we get automation analytic solution, is more around helping them achieve competitive edge. Yeah. And then we look at the other areas around workforce empowerment, around ideation, empathy, and all that, and then collaboration is another area, which is once we have a good foundation built in and the system in place, ERP, mobile app, web app, whatever it is, then that in a nutshell is for us. And so now, just before we'll take a break, but another thing that people tend to confuse digital transformation with digitalization, with digitization, with digital operations. There's so many even digital marketing. But like I highlighted before, it's important to understand what it is that your business needs and what you need to do at what time. So you can start off with digital operations, trying to digitize your operations, and then you can focus on digital transformation after you've done that. Or you could start off with digital transformation and then work to whatever backwards. So digital transformation is very much focused on your customers, their needs, and how you can service them better, and then building a business around that. Yeah. But for a lot of businesses, it's much harder to do that. So they tend to focus more on digital operations. And then once they've digitized operations, then they look at how they can provide other services. So with that comes the end of this. We can take a break. And then when we come back, we'll go back to what's next on the agenda. So we look at focus on more on working capital optimization. This is the exciting part where we will talk about what that means. And then we also talk about some of the case studies, businesses who utilizing these solutions and generating significant ROI. And then also we look at custom demonstration, what this solution looks like, the automation, streamline, all that kind of stuff, the ERP. So it's really, we're going to get into a bit more detail after the break. So yeah, we'll take a 10-15 minutes break and then we'll come back. All right, so now the next slide. All right, given that obviously just the type of people what you're interested in, I wanted to sort of play videos just to provide context around what are some of the solutions that we're looking at and we're working with to achieve that solid foundation and the substructure and the what is it called, superstructure of that bridge. So we're looking at Odoo. Yeah, Odoo is a cloud ERP solution, and I can sort of play videos so that you can understand what that is if you haven't already seen that. All right, so I just thought I'll play this video because it sort of gives you a better understanding, because all this more, it's a cloud-based ERP solution that has come from the open source environment. So basically that's, just one second, let me turn this YouTube.
Good morning, welcome to Biodufar. I start my morning with Biodufar app.
So this here.
I check up.
All right. All right. So basically, the reason I wanted to show this is building that foundation. People are approaching in different ways, but we've chosen to partner with Odoo as an implementation partner to bring this to grow businesses because of the flexibility and agility that you can get when you streamline with Odoo. So that's, to do with, flexibility around your business, what you're offering can change, and you can add different modules. I normally look at it as the app store of the ERP world. So basically you add whatever app that you need to be able to run your business. And then Odoo just released a new version 15, which makes it much easier for businesses to collaborate and be more efficient, more productive, and all that kind of stuff. So, basically, whatever your business is, we'll find a solution that we can customize to work for your business, whether it's retail, manufacturing, and you going into the what is it called? Product management or product development space. So whatever your business is, Odoo could be customized to work for you because it's fully customizable. And then the other one we're looking at is the accounts payable. So we got an accounts payable solution that we work with, which I'm going to demo a bit later on. But this more of a video will give you guys a bit of understanding of what that is. Yeah. Growth-oriented businesses often experience rapid increase in the number of suppliers, which often results to them receiving hundreds or thousands of invoices weekly. Their accounts payable team rely on business units, procurement, and third-party vendors or suppliers to capture information and process invoices for payments. Generally, companies' invoices from their different suppliers vary in formats, from paper invoices to Word documents to PDF attachment via emails or fax. Moreover, the invoice data is not always in a structured layout. Many times, they are semi-structured or unstructured. In general, it takes between 4 and 16 days for companies to process an invoice from receipt through payment approval. There are 3 main stages of the accounts payable process as follows. First, the procurement team creates a purchase order in the financial systems that serves as a contract between your business and the third-party supplier to exchange cash for their products or services. The purchase order lays out basic information such as quantities of the materials, agreed price of the order, when to fulfill the order, etc. Second, once the order is fulfilled by the supplier, the team carefully examines the goods received, comparing it against the original purchase order, and preparing a good receipt report. If there is any mismatch or damage, the team will follow up with the supplier for credit or replacement. Third, as soon as the goods received is confirmed, the supplier then sends the invoice that lists the record indicating what they have delivered at what price. However, before the accounts payable team makes the payment, the invoice needs to be thoroughly reviewed or approved through a 2-way match or 3-way match of an invoice against purchase order and or good receipt notice. Our accounts payable automation solution is powered by the Navios platform, which combines RPA, AI, and business process management, allowing us to quickly automate manual tasks such as receiving purchase orders, scanning invoices, extracting data to verify them against multiple documents, and posting the data into an ERP system or accounting system. This solution can empower you to improve cash flow, data accuracy, and supply relations through intelligent data capture from different types of invoices, invoice classification and sorting, duplicate invoice checking, data validation against ERP, invoice exception flagging, invoice approval routing, automated tasks and reminders for payments, seamless flow of information through discrete systems, and finally, reporting and analytics. So that's the video, and then the final one. I've got what is it called? This is Global Accounts Receivable Automation. So Global PayX, yeah, which we've got some of the guys on the line here, Suhas and Deepak. We're working close with them to see how we bring this to market here, because this is a powerful tool around accounts receivable automation. So I'm going to play a video that sort of explains what this is, and then I'll get these guys to Suhas, if you want to answer any question they might have around the solution. But I thought it was a good one to sort of showcase in this event as well.
Retail businesses globally are witnessing exponential growth in organized retail trade, fueled by changing consumer behaviors and high adoption of online commerce. Can you imagine the time and effort spent by large retail outlets such as Walmart just to track all of the multi-product orders from popular e-commerce platforms and corresponding accounts receivables? Now, imagine the challenge of doing this across many e-commerce platforms and large retail chains. Work is tedious, error-prone, and cumbersome. Any inefficiency impacts working capital, customer relationship, and core financial metrics. Resultant write-offs, delay, unapplied cash, have deeper implications on the financial health of the company. Given the surge in demand for these channels, streamlining the order-to-cash process in organized retail is important for both the seller, accounts receivable, and buyer, accounts payable. This need is pronounced across all industries. Companies can therefore look to intelligently automate their accounts receivable and accounts payable processes. Seller organizations have limited say on the processes of their large customers, such as e-commerce companies, large retail chains, banking, resources, and government organizations. For instance, organized retail buyers usually make weekly bulk payments to their vendors. They may make one single payment against multiple invoices across stores, appropriating deductions, and subsequently send a remittance or payment advice via email. The challenge for the seller or corporate is to reconcile these complex payments and adjustments against their customer outstanding ledger in their enterprise resource planning system. This is a time-consuming process, and dispute, if any, have to be resolved quickly. Otherwise, this can cause significant backlog, eventually leading to write-offs and dissatisfaction for both buyers and sellers. Some of the possible solutions to optimize the accounts receivable process include artificial intelligence, machine learning-based document extraction and reconciliation, electronic data interchange, MOS, and API adapters to enable integration to ERPs and blockchain technologies to facilitate fast and reliable cross-border payments and reduce costs. These solutions can be effectively combined to build a flexible and adaptable bridge that ensure that as a supplier or buyer, you're not frustrated out of the supply chain as a result of constant change in your market or industry.
so that's that one. The reason I thought I'll show these three videos is to sort of understand which one of the solutions, you guys are interested in us to go a bit more in depth into, and then I can, rather than focus on all of them.
Kelechi?
Yeah, so is there one of the solutions that would like to focus, or do you want me to just run through the entire presentation?
To be honest, nothing specific about this one. Like, yeah, like I'm too easy. I can ask the other colleagues.
Yeah, all right. I think let's just focus on the accounts receivable automation, and then just get a bit more in depth into that. Yeah. Just before we continue, I just wanted to highlight this part around, this is more the other stuff. It's basically that all-in-one solution for group businesses that allow them to be able to make make multi-currency type arrangement. Because once you start trying to grow your business, you're looking at operating different countries. So an ERP that will allow you for multi-currency, that will allow you to do drop shipping and all that kind of stuff, and it becomes important to, rather than using different off-the-shelf solutions, to try and integrate them to achieve that. Might as well come in an all-in-one solution, and that's what we're offering here around the audio implementation. And then in terms of case studies, lots of companies are using it. It's got probably 7 million users around the world and ongoing. And then the other one we focus on is more around discovery. So the discovery side is, we look at this around automation. So it's how we understand the business process, map out the business process, and then analyze that, see opportunities for improvement. And then once all that is done, we do the simulation around what does the business process look like when there's an automation, when this part of business process be automated. So understanding that, and also understanding return on investment around automation is an important step that we take initially before we even go ahead and start trying to do any automation implementation project. And then things around, going into a business, understanding the process at a very high level, and build what we call like a process library. So for example, we're looking at the procure to pay process here. So which is, that's that process highlighted there. So that's part of the main process, which is managed purchase processing. Yeah. So once we understand the business process at that level, at this level, then we can now go in and map it out at the lower level, where we look at the business process following the BPM standards, and then map out the business process, understanding the documents, the systems, and the decision points around that process. And then once that is understood, we also understand the roles involved in that process, and also which external suppliers who are part of that process. So once that is understood, we can sort of map that out in terms of how the process information flows through the process, and where opportunity exists for automation. We can now start looking into this from this level. Another good thing about the solution is that rather than having your business process in a document in a paper somewhere, this is your business process that everyone within the business can come in and collaborate. When there's a change there, they can understand what the change is, and then the process can be live. And then you can also access live documents around the process just by clicking on it and moving through. So another thing that we look at is around analyzing the business process to find which ones are value added and non-value added processes, and then which ones are waste. So the waste are the ones that I highlighted in red. So where there's a waste, we look at and focus on that area for automation, and then trying to reduce that waste here, because that waste could be people spending too much time, moving from one document to another, opening up emails, scanning for emails and all that kind of stuff. Those are time people spend that are considered waste. So if we can automate some of that time and get actually focus on value adding activities, then that's the goal of the automation. And then we will look at things around, I think I mentioned that's around CVA, customer value added, business value added, and non-value added activities. Highlight those. And then we now look at the process around the time analysis. So we'll see how long it takes to execute each one of those processes. So this process we're using, showing here is more around the accounts payable process. So it's just figuring out, I don't know if you can, it's pretty hard to see from here, but basically it's just trying to analyze it from a time point of view, time it takes to execute that process. Because once we understand the time, then we can look at how we can improve that time and what that can equate to when it comes to the speed at which you meet the need of the customer, because that's what the business exists to do. So you can play around improving that speed, and then once you using that scenario analysis around time, then we can go and do the cost analysis. This is the way you take into consideration all the costs that make part of that process, which is people's salary. It could be materials that are used, cost of the systems that are used to run that process, and then also redundant systems that are not actually being utilized quite well. So we can do the analysis around the cost, and then from that, you can understand, what the value of automation will be, because a lot of the automation solutions are more like a license-based, yearly license. So if you can understand what your costs look like for the year, and then you bring in automation, and then you can understand how that would, reduce your costs, what the return on investment could be. And then that gives you more confidence to actually embark on the journey of automation. And this is a process we take as part of the discovery process. And then in terms of the business rules as well, can be embedded into this, which means when the automation is happening, we're looking at the automation and then seeing how people actually comply to business rules. And then you can have compliance dashboards can build up for you to monitor those processes as people are executing it. And also when the automation is executing it, how that is working. So all that metadata can be fed into this to be able to observe the entire business process and how it's going. And then the other one is superstructure. I think rather than going into detail, maybe I wanted to explain the concept of automation so that people can understand what that is. I normally start by explaining it from a Gartner report, where the automation goes from simple stuff to hyper automation. So the simple stuff is what we hear commonly around APIs. Okay, let's automate our workflow through APIs, so pushing information from one point to the other. And then there's the RPA stuff. People talk about mimicking what a person would do on the computer, clicking mouses, entering information into systems. So that's the task automation, yeah. And then we look at it from a process automation point of view. So we were now looking at the workflow and IBPMS, which is Intelligent Business Process Management. So it's basically IBPMS is similar to what I just showed earlier around the business process, is when you bring intelligence into that business process. It's no longer a process that just sits in a document somewhere that every time that gathers dust, someone has to go through and figure out. It's a process that is live, intelligent, and it's also adapting to changes here. So now you can also look at things around smart bots, conversational stuff, which is quite common now when it comes to customer service type businesses, where they're taking calls and reacting to people's conversations and interpreting that. So if you look at your business and you're thinking, okay, I run a service business, my headache right now is a lot of customers are calling me to address issues. Maybe you can look at ways to use conversational bots to actually take care of a lot of that inquiry that comes through to you from different channels. So, and then we'll now look at the business operations point of view, where is where we focus on. So it's where we deliver end-to-end automation of the business process, which is that digital operations. Because once we get into the digital operation realm, we're looking at the value that automation is bringing to the business at the business level. We're not looking at it at a task level or making people happy or people thinking that they're cool. We're looking at the business level. So what does this value, what kind of value is this automation bringing to the business, yeah, and to the customers? So, and that's where the digital operation comes in, and it becomes a bit complex when you try to align it to that level. And then if you're looking at things around, this is where if you're trying to get it to that business level, then you now start utilizing AI, machine learning, and advanced algorithms to achieve that, because when it comes to knowledge workers, we have to go through documents, we have to read it, we have to understand it, we have to, check it for compliance, we have to update it. So this is all, cognitive type task. And you need, if you want to automate at the business operations or digital operations level, then we need to take that into consideration as well, which is why some of these solutions I've sort of just played a video of this is where they operate at the digital operations level. So in terms of the approach to automation, it's always important to understand, some of the key metrics that you're looking to achieve. This is where the business level point of view. So in this case, for example, the accounts payable automation. So looking at the number of full-time employees involved in executing that process. Yeah. And then we're looking at the number of tasks involved, the time it takes to complete that task. So all this information, we understand this when we do the process, when we understand the business process through the discovery stage. And then we can look at, what that looks like in terms of return on investment, yeah, and then how that compares to, other, in terms of low complexity and high value, which means it's easy to implement, but the value for your business is going to be high. So once the analysis starts looking like that, then it makes sense for you to actually explore and automate that process. So that's basically that that digital process automation. Some people call it hyper automation, but that's basically what that means. Yeah. And then the next thing is more around case studies. So I wanted to pick out 2 case studies. One is around accounts payable. The accounts payable solution is this is one of our partners' accounts payable solution. So this basically the company receiving multiple invoices, hundreds of invoices on a monthly basis, and the formats is all different types. So it's coming from digital, it's coming through email, it's coming through scanned copies, hard copies. So the different formats is coming, and all this stuff has to be entered into the SAP system, yeah, which is the business management system that they use. So to do this involves, transcribing information, extracting information, and all that stuff. And then to get it to that level of digital operations, we needed to understand the business process and some of those key metrics that I highlighted earlier, and then now apply the automation to achieve that. So which means things around AI capability to read and understand data from semi-structured to unstructured documents. So if you remember the video that played earlier, that the invoice was a bit complex. So that's more like a semi-structured invoice where the information it's not in a structured format. It's just you have to pick out that information from a sentence or something like that. Then it becomes a bit more complex. So it becomes a bit more complex. So just got someone else join. Yeah. So yeah, I think you just run through, so obviously you can pick up. Yeah. So yeah, so it becomes a bit more complex. So now another thing around the solution is more around holistic governance, and then also trying to bring your suppliers to your supply chain, which is trying to address that problem that I highlighted earlier, where your suppliers can now load their invoices, whether it's through email or through a vendor portal, onto the what's it called? They load it onto the platform, and then the platform processes it directly and then informs them whether the invoice has been matched correctly, whether the invoice needs to be updated. So they get this feedback straight away, and then which means that their money is they know their money is gonna be coming fast once it's an approved invoice. And it just comes down to the accounts, how long it takes them to actually process the payment and send it to them. So this is some of the things that are coming into businesses that is allowing them to actually be more, to optimize the accounts payable and actually have a competitive advantage against other businesses because they're paying their suppliers much faster than the usual industry standard. And yeah, so that's just one case study I wanted to highlight. And then the other case study I wanted to highlight is from GlobeX. So I've got some of the guys from GlobeX here. They might want to add to this. But I thought this was a good case study because it sort of highlights where companies are implementing automation
to automate the accounts receivable process. It's an important process because a lot of companies, like Rupert mentioned earlier, people, they tweak around trying to reduce, trying to push back payments, yeah? So that's accounts payable. So for you as a, let's say, corporate supplier, they're pushing back payments, they're making their payment terms 90 days or something like that. That's so that they can have good, they can look good on the books, yeah? But for the supplier, if you're a supplier, you want your payment to be paid fast. So it's a push-pull thing. So where you need to really get your payments paid on time. So because that is happening, the pressures can come from suppliers to make the corporates to change their terms, which means if a corporate has implemented an automation solution that allows them to receive money faster, which means they can pay faster, their cash flow is not optimized, their working capital is optimized. That means they're probably more flexible to try to change their payment terms. So, and if their competition is doing it, they will be forced to do it as well. So that pressure will come from whichever way it's coming, whether it's from suppliers or it's going to come down from the main corporate customers. So this solution is basically, the case study here is about a tire reseller. So the tire seller. So the tire seller makes one single payment against multiple invoices across stores. So this is a large company, yeah. So which large companies, they sometimes do remittance in a bulk payment form rather than paying for different line items in an invoice, yeah. So they might pay, okay, for this store, you purchased, $1 million from you this month. We're gonna process that invoice for $1 million, and then when that invoice is paid, then you need to obviously within the business that needs to be reconciled against the invoices so that it can be reported from an accounting point of view. So that's where the complexity comes in, yeah? So that reconciliation can take a long time for some businesses, yeah? And this is where accounts receivable comes in, because the automation of that, where the Glolex solution coming in to try and utilize the same kind of technology, AI, machine learning, and data extraction, EDI, electronic data interchange, and bot adapters like the RPS, and so they brought these technologies together to really unlock the value. So for this particular company, European-based company, so they were able to unlock $4.8 million euros in just 8 months. Yeah, and then that also, not only that, they also accelerated the reconciliation by 2 times. This is the reconciliation is the process of trying to reconcile payments to invoices. So they accelerate that by double, yeah. And the DSO smugglers matrix around DSO to 6 days, and then you got 99% accuracy in utilization of each working capital.
More around the supply chain case study. So this is for a mid-sized growth business, yeah. So the business is very much into the business of making tea, yeah, manufacturing tea and selling it globally. So I think in this case, they had about 6,000 plus suppliers who they obviously had to pay and all that stuff. So before they implement all the company would receive, people, they have different ways of making payments, yeah. So they'll making payments to those who supply like check payments. They make payments through bank account directly, and they also make cash payments. So trying to reconcile all these kind of payments is a headache for the company. So by bringing in Odoo, it made it quite easy for the company to sort of, when I say bringing Odoo, I'm talking about the accounts and supplier payroll apps. So it made it easy for the company to integrate, to achieve like an integrated supplier payment process with the local banks. And this means that, rather than, trying to make payments individually, the company was, the payments to different bank accounts was automated. So basically what they did is simply send in the bank files, like there's a batch payments that they need to make to different suppliers. And then once a month, they send it to the banks, and then that automatically goes straight to the bank accounts or for the payments. And then for check type payments, quite easy to create a check on Odoo, and then that check can be used to reconcile a check payment as well as a cash payment if that's what's been done. And then so basically it's really cutting down the administration cost and while also ensuring timely payments. And that's what was achieved immediately. But this company just ended. The company also decided to implement Odoo, other modules within Odoo. Yeah, so such as sales, purchase, inventory manufacturing, and a few other ones as well around employee management and fleet management as well. So this helped them achieve that end-to-end supply chain visibility, and end-to-end supply chain automation, which basically just looking at the company's growth trajectory, because they were looking at adding an additional probably I think they started off at 5,000 suppliers, and with that growth, they needed to add another 1,500 suppliers quite fast. And then this really allowed them to do that. Yeah. So that's one case study. And then so I just wanted to do like a quick demo of just some of the solutions, but so that at least a good way to sort of end this and then see if there's any other questions that might come after that demo. So just give me a second, I'll just quickly start that. Yeah. So the first solution I'm trying to demo here is just the automation side of things, because I mentioned we partner with Nividus, and it's more from that custom automation solutions and how we bring it together. So this demo is more around the accounts payable side of things, and then I'm also trying to showcase how this can be integrated to ERP to do other kind of work. So the foundational ERP using here is Odoo. So I'm just quickly going to run a schedule of generating a purchase order. So that has already been prepared as an automation. Yeah, and then basically this is an RPA kicking in to try and create a purchase order. Yeah. So as a business owner, you from the back end, you're the one controlling this. Some of the processes that have been automated, you can view them from here, and then you can select which automation bot to run. So this one generates the purchase order. So we schedule this to run, and then in a few minutes, this should kick in and then run that process. Just schedule the process again. So that should kick off in a few minutes. And then what that would do, it would sort of just open up the ERP, log in like a person would, and then it would open up the ERP, which is what it's doing here. So it will log in like a person would, and then it opens up that Odoo ERP, and then it goes create the purchase order using the purchase order app on Odoo. So this is more what we call like the front end automation. So basically navigating the user interface to enter information. But a lot of the automation also can be achieved through the backend API, connecting that to the database to push this information. And that's when the business is comfortable that that's what they want. They want something more robust, and that can be achieved that way. So the Global X solution is very much it's in that fashion where it's embedded directly into your ERP to achieve that accounts receivable type automation as well. So this, yeah, just 1 second. I'll get this. Yeah. Yes, just an echo. Just level 25. Just get up to level 25. Here the ground floor. All right, just there's level 25, just the button, just go to the elevator, and then there's a button there, just press 25. Yeah, just go to the elevator. All right, so that's just that one. So create a purchase order. So this purchase order, it's basically with this item with an amount. And then what I'm going to showcase now is how when a supplier is fulfilled this purchase order, they now need to load their invoices for processing. So if I go back to this, and then I log in as a supplier. So I'll sign out and then log in as a supplier. Just have to see from here. How are you? Good. Yeah, then that's fine. We're almost finishing, but we'll have to we're just doing a demo of the solution. Yeah, so basically so now I'm just logged in as a supplier, Globe Dynamics. So now the supplier goes through the dashboard for the supplier, and then there is a vendor portal. So the supplier uploads their invoice. So first scenario is when there's the invoice is correct, so that we're gonna get an instant match. So we'll just select that particular invoice. And then so basically the AI engine is kicked in to try and read the invoice like a person would to extract the information that it's been trying to extract. All right, so that's the invoice come through and the invoice is accepted. So for the supplier can sort of view quickly provide comments, raise queries from here about that invoice, rather than going to an email to try and create that. So you raise queries around that. And then you can also check and see if the information extracted is correct. So it goes through the line items and goes, okay, yeah, that's correct. And then it says it's accepted here. So on the back end, the final log out and then log in as the administrator. So as the administrator, obviously you have access to everything because this is normally work as a workflow. So if there are different people that are part of that workflow, for example, the P2P manager, procure-to-pay manager is a workflow, and then there is a user department and purchase order, people who are the exception handling. So there are different people that form part of that process. So this can be routed to the right people. Yeah. So in this case, the admin has got all the access. Yeah. So which means that particular invoice, let's see the date. So yeah, so that invoice comes in and it claims that, and then so basically this is the invoice we're looking at. So the AI engine is extract the information. So as you can see, some of that information has already been extracted, and you can validate that on here. And then you're looking at the what's it called? And you can also go in and view it at the table level, which is basically line items being matched. So here you've got the line items being matched against the actual information in the ERB. So it's being matched against purchase order number and the GRN number, goods received number. So that matching happened here automatically. So it's grains matched, which means it's all done. So this is also similar to the accounts receivable video I showed earlier. It's that matching of the accounts receivable, so reconciling payments against invoices, a similar kind of format thing, same kind of matching. So now if you've got as a diagram, so basically you can view it as a process. So because we loaded that process, we mapped that process externally and we loaded it into the platform, so you can see how what is it called? At what stage automation is as part of that process and who's doing what. So this is a QC ready stage. And then is the person to go through that QC stage before the automation pushes it in for payment. So once that's all done. Then as a approver, well, QC person, so you complete the task. Yeah, and then once the task is completed, then normally depends on how it wants to be loaded to the ERP. The RPA kicks in to take that information and load it to the ERP. And then it also depends if you want to send it to an email, whatever action is that needs to happen, that can be configured as a separate thing. So that's basically gives you a bit of an idea in terms of what an accounts payable solution could look like. And then there's also being able to manage the vendors from the portal through vendor registration and vendor list. So that way you don't have invoices coming from different emails that you don't know. So you know that all the invoices are coming from people within that vendors within your supply chain. So that's just another way of solving some of the current challenges around fraud, current challenges around issues, a lot of disputes around send an invoice, you didn't receive it, so long process. You look at your email, that kind of stuff can be resolved just by having everything. Yeah, in terms of why choose data engineering, it's really that whole fact that we focus on bridging the gap between business and technology, and we utilizing next generation technologies to do this that allow better collaboration between business and technology and IT and all that kind of stuff. So, but to do that as well, we also want to work very closely with our customers to ensure that we understand their challenges and whatever issues that we come up with that can actually deliver to solve the challenges, and we also deliver them good return on investment. And then the scalability side of things for us is more around through the partnerships that we have with global companies as well as local companies to help deliver this solution. So basically, we have a very solid supply chain to help deliver these solutions with speed. And then the other thing is obviously a highly skilled team. We have an offshore team that we use to deliver our services, and we also try to put. We tend to get collaborate with companies locally and also people locally to try and be very close to the customer in terms of delivering good service and also providing that support. With that comes to the end of our talk. So just the last slide is just basically some of the key customers and partners that we've worked with and we continue to work with. And then, so we're really looking at helping grow businesses through this digital transformation journey, and then hoping that, there will be time to work with you guys. Yeah. With that comes the end of the seminar. I don't know if anyone has any questions, because if you do, this is the time to throw it out.